Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a video I have been so excited to film. It is baby names I love but will not be using. So I had a plethora of names to choose from because I have been tracking names for about 10 years. When I was in college, I worked in the academic advising office, so I helped with orientation and was looking at thousands of names every day. And so I just started keeping track, and I have ever since. So by the time we found out we were pregnant, I had about 250 girl names and 250 boy names to choose from. So Jordan and I went through all of them. He is super picky with names. So out of my 250 some girl names, we ended up with 10. And we narrowed that down to 7. And now I think we've narrowed it down to like 2 or 3. So we're in a good spot there. But yeah, so I'm really excited to share some of those names with you because, you know, he vetoed a lot. So I have a ton to share. So I will say before we get started, my preference in names is definitely more unique. So I don't know where that came from. Like my name Cassie, I didn't have a lot of Cassies growing up. There was like another Cassandra, but I've never gone by my full name. And there was occasionally a Cassidy, but I never met any other Cassies. So I think I just really liked that, and I never had to use like a last initial or anything. So I'm sure a lot of 90s kids can relate. There was a million Rachels and Emilys and Courtneys and Zacharys and Kyles, and those were like the big names of our time period. And so I really want to try and steer clear of names that are going to be like that for my kids' generation as much as I can plan for. My husband is named Jordan. He was on a ski team once. I think there was 10 of them and 6 of them were named Jordan. So that's the kind of situation I'm trying to avoid with these names. So you will notice they're a little bit different, a little bit more unique, and that is one of the reasons why I also just like being a little different. So let's go ahead and jump into it, and we will kick it off with girl names. So the first girl name I love is Gemma. So this is one that just got added to the list recently. If you guys watch the Chatwins vlogs on YouTube, they have a daughter named Gemma, and I just think it's such a beautiful name. Like Emma is a little more typical, but Gemma just kind of glams it up, makes it a little bit more different, but it's not like too out there. It's also very pretty. I like pretty feminine girl names, and so I just love Gemma. But that was one Jordan liked it, but he didn't love it, so it didn't make the final list. Next on my list, I was dead set for years that my daughter would be named Lorena. I love the name Lorena. I love the nickname Reina. I think that's beautiful. Reina means queen in Spanish, and with my history in pageants, I just think it's so beautiful. It's so unique, but it's not, this is another thing with names. I love unique, but not like, wait, what did you say? How do you spell that? Like, I don't want to make it weird and made up. Like, I still want a normal, quote unquote, name, but just something that you don't hear every day. So I think Lorena and Raina definitely fit into that category. I also love the TV show Nashville, so like Raina James. I just think it's such a cool name. I actually got this name. Comment down below if you ever watched the show The Brothers Garcia on Nickelodeon growing up. I absolutely loved that show. It reminded me of all of my extended family when we'd have like our big holiday get-togethers. And so for the longest time, my kids were gonna be named Lorena and Carlos because those were the siblings from the Brothers Garcia. So Carlos fell off the list a ways back, but Lorena is still there. I still love it. Next up is Aria. I think Aria is such a beautiful name, and it did get a little popular. I think it's going to continue being popular because my generation growing up watching Pretty Little Liars, I remember in college that was like on everyone's list. So I don't know, maybe people will start forgetting about it soon since that show is over, but I just think Aria is so pretty. I also think of the gorgeous resort in Las Vegas named Aria, which maybe that's a weird thing to name your child after, but I just think it's such a pretty and unique name. Next is Aniston. So I love this name. I think it's so cool. It's another one of those that's so different. I think I heard someone call their daughter in the store Aniston or something like that. And I was like, whoa, that is awesome. And I thought Jordan might actually like it because he is obsessed with Jennifer Aniston. That is like his all-time celebrity crush. But because it's his all-time celebrity crush, he doesn't want people thinking like, oh my gosh, you named your daughter after Jennifer Aniston, you're that obsessed. So he vetoed this name, but I thought it was so cute. I mean, if you wanted to do a nickname, you could do Annie, but I don't necessarily think it needs one. I just think Aniston on his own is just a cool name. I am kind of obsessed with the Hendricks family on Instagram. They have the podcast, The Good Life. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do so. But her name is Cezanne. I think Cezanne is such a beautiful name. She is Kurdish, and so I think it's a more common name in Kurdish culture. Correct me if I'm wrong. But she's the first Cezanne I have ever heard of. And I am a sucker, as you will see, for names with Z in them. I think Z is just like the coolest letter. It's underused. And Cezanne, it's almost like an exotic version of Susan. So I just think it's really cool, really unique, and I'm obsessed with Cezanne Hendricks. So that's another reason why I think I like it so much. But Jordan knows that I'm obsessed with Cezanne, and so he says I can't name our daughter after her. Like I said, I'm a sucker for a name with Z, Zara. I think Zara is such a beautiful name. Of course, it is a clothing brand. That's probably gonna be the first thing people think of, and that's fine. But I just think Zara makes a really cool name. It's short and sweet. It's easy to spell. I'm also planning on homeschooling our kids, so something I always think of is like phonetically, how is this going to be to explain to them how to spell their own name? And Zara would be super easy. It's another one where I feel like it's kind of an exotic version of Sarah. It's a unique way to do it, but it's not totally out there. So Zara is another one that is high on my list. Next up is Monroe. I think Monroe is such a beautiful name. Obviously, a lot of people's first kind of thought is going to be Marilyn Monroe. I don't mind that too much though, because that's like old Hollywood glamour, and I am all about that. I also love that the nickname can be Roe. I think Roe is a really cute nickname. Yeah, I've heard Monroe used a lot for like a middle name. I have some friends that use Monroe as a middle name, but I think it makes a really cool, unique first name. Again, I have never met a Monroe. The only one I think I've heard of is Mariah Carey when they had Moroccan and Monroe, so it could be Rock and Row. I would not do that. But Monroe, just Monroe, I think is really cool. Next up is Georgia. I think Georgia is such a cute name. It's a little bit older, but this one came onto my list. It's such a vivid memory. We were at the lake and there was a super cute little girl like playing in the water. She had curly hair, and her mom called her over and her name was Georgia. And I was like, oh, that is so cool. I love that name. And like I said, it is an older name, so I don't think I have met anyone with the name Georgia. The only Georgia I've ever known was a little old lady that was in my grandma's nursing home. And so that's the only Georgia I've ever met. And so it's one, I think she probably wouldn't have any other Georges in her class. And I really like that. Next up is Eva. Eva has been on my list forever. I just think V's and Z's, super cool letters, underused. And Eva is just, it's short and sweet, it's beautiful, and I think it's also because like a lot of the biggest Latinas in pop culture are named Eva, like Eva Mendes, Eva Longoria, and they're just some of the most beautiful people in the entire world, in my humble opinion. I think it's a gorgeous name. Okay, last but not least for girls is Mara. I think Mara is such a beautiful name. It's short and sweet, and I think it's cool because it can go a little bit more edgy or it can go more girly. You know, that's something I really like with names. I feel like you have to take into consideration, like, you don't know what this kid is gonna grow up to be. Like, are they gonna be an athlete? Are they gonna be an artist? Are they gonna be like the ultimate girly girl? Like, you don't know. So you want a name that can kind of go any direction. And I feel like Mara does that really well. I've never met a Mara before. I think there's a Mara that's an actress, but I can't think of her name, like her last name right now, but I'm picturing one. I think there's an actress with the name Mara, but I know two Amaras, like Amara. And I also love that name, but I feel like in both cases, I just end up calling them Mara because it's easier. So I would rather just name our daughter Mara. Those are my 10 girl names. So let's go ahead and hop into boy names. But real quick, while we just did all the girl names, comment down below which of those is your favorite, or maybe if you have a favorite name that is not on this list. Okay, boys. For some reason, we had a way easier time with boy names. And then I heard after the fact, like, yeah, whatever names that you guys have picked out, like what names are easier. Like if you have an easier time with girl names, for sure you're having a boy. And like if you have an easy time with boy names, you're gonna have a girl. And that was the case for us because we had a solid list of boy names and we're having a girl. So we had to like totally go back to the drawing board. But boy names, I have so many that I love. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first one is Hudson. If we had a boy and I could name him whatever I wanted, it would be Hudson. This is like my all-time favorite name. I think it's strong, it's different. And so Hudson to me, like he's kind of rugged and outdoorsy, but he's like really cool. He could be an athlete. Like Hudson is just the coolest name in the world to me. The reason Jordan doesn't like it, he is big on word association, and I think that's what's killed a lot of names for us. He thinks of the plane that had to do the emergency landing on the Hudson River. When he hears the name Hudson, he thinks of that. And so he's like, I don't want to name my kid that. So no Hudson for me, but if you guys need a boy name, you should totally use it because it's an awesome name. Next up, I love unique letters, as you know. I love the name Xavier. I think Xavier is such an awesome name. Like, whose name starts with X? Like, that's so rare. And I've just always loved that name. We grew up watching a lot of March Madness sports. I would always root for Xavier to win just because I'm like, what a cool name. The reason this one is actually X-nayed, I don't think Jordan liked it anyways, but it really bothers me when people say Xavier. Like, it's not Xavier, it's just Xavier. And so I've seen in recent years people name their kid Xavier but then spell it with a Z, so people just say Xavier. I'm like, no, you shouldn't have to change the spelling for people to say it right. It's just Xavier. So I wouldn't want to be correcting people their whole life, so that one's a no-go, but I think it's really cool. Next up is Lincoln. I think Lincoln is just such a classic and strong name. I really like that for a little boy. The only issue I have with Lincoln, going back to homeschooling and spelling phonetically, I hate that I would have to explain, like, Mommy, why is there an L in my name? Like, because I would spell it the typical Lincoln, because that's just the correct spelling of it in my mind. But that second L is silent and it's so unnecessary. But if you take that out, it looks wrong. So I would hate having to teach them how to spell their name. And that may be a dumb reason to take it off the list, but it is what it is. Next up is Everett. I think that Everett is such an awesome name for a boy. It's, again, a little bit outdoorsy, but it could also go for like CEO businessman. Like, it can go a lot of different directions. I think of Michael Everett Scott. I think that's his name, the actor. And he's just like always plays the most lovable man. And so I don't know, I just have a soft spot for that name. And you could have the nickname Rhett, which Rhett is a super popular name right now, especially for like people that are a little more country, I think because of Thomas Rhett. But I think Rhett would be a cute nickname for Everett. The reason Jordan X-nayed this one is because he thinks of Everett, Washington, the suburb of Seattle, and we are not fans of Seattle. If you're from Seattle, like, that's great. I have a lot of friends there. We've spent a lot of time in Seattle growing up in the Pacific Northwest, but we're just like not King County people. And so Jordan thinks of Everett, which makes him not like it. Next up, I love the name Vaughn. Vaughn is such a cool name. I would spell it the classic way, Vaughn. And this makes me think of Fred Vaughn from Little Women, just like the super classy, sophisticated man. Again, V, unique letter. Other people might think of Vince Vaughn, which, you know, that is what it is. But I think Vaughn is just such a strong name. And again, it could go like CEO, it could go sporty, it could go either way. Next up, I love the name Deacon. Like I mentioned, I was obsessed with the TV show Nashville, and Deacon and Raina are like two of the main characters. And so I had never heard of the name Deacon. Like, we talk about deacons in our church. It's like a position that you can hold in church. But like Deacon as a name, I had never really heard of before. And so I think that is just a really cool name. I don't know what you would do for the nickname, but whatever, it's an awesome name on its own. The next one I may have stolen from Mallory Irvin. It's Ford. I think Ford is just such an awesome name. I think I've said that for everything. Sorry if I'm a little bit repetitive, but Ford is just such a strong name. It's classic. Like, we've had a President Ford, like Ford Motor Company. Like, it just feels very strong and masculine to me. And again, short, easy to spell, but not gonna have a lot of other kids with that name in his class. Ironically, next we have Henry. It's not like I'm a big Ford Motors person. Like, this is just coincidence. But I just think Henry is such a classic name. I did grow up with one Henry. Yeah, that's the only Henry I've ever known. I just think it's super classic. And some of those older names, like I mentioned, Georgia, they are starting to come back. So he probably would meet some other Henrys along the way in his life. But I just think it's really classic and really cute. Next up is Miles. I have always loved the name Miles. I feel like the best friend in a lot of movies growing up was named Miles. Like, Miles was always like the go-to guy. Like, he's there for you. He's gonna do anything he can to help you. Like, there's Miles in Step Up. There's Miles in The Holiday. Like, it's always the best friend guy. And I just think it's a really cool name. Jordan's super into like cars and motorsports. So I was like, I don't know, Miles, like, would you like that? It's kind of in that vein. And I think to him it was a little too on the nose. But I just think Miles is a really cool name. John Legend and Chrissy Teigen have a Miles. So maybe it'll be more popular, but I've never met a Miles in real life. Last but certainly not least, I love the name Brooks for a boy. So it's kind of funny because a couple years back, I was listening to a podcast, and the wife who runs the podcast, her husband is named Brooks. And I was like, oh, Brooks, like, what an interesting name. I've never heard that before. And then within the last year or two, I have had 2 friends name their son Brooks. So I think this name is like about to blow up if it has not already. And it also is another one that kind of makes me think of Little Women. Mr. Brooks is the one Meg ends up with, and he's like such a sweet man. And like Brook, like a river brook, kind of outdoorsy. I just think, again, it can go a lot of different ways. So I really love that name. Those are some names that I love but will not be using. I'm so glad I got to share them with you. I hope it was fun for you to listen to. I feel like they're different. They're a little bit more unique. So comment down below, especially if your name is on that list. You have a super cool name and I think you're a really cool person. Comment down below like your favorite name from that list, or any other thoughts you have as to what we might be naming our daughter from that list. Again, her name is not on there, but it gives you a feel for the kind of names I like. I'll give you our top, I'm not telling you our top 4, I will give you hints on our top 4. So one I would say is more popular as a last name. One is a brand name. It's not Zara. The next one, think Old Hollywood. And then the other one, think Italian. Neither of us are Italian, but it may or may not be a word in Italian. So those are your hints for the names we will be using. Let me know your thoughts on the names we will not be using. If you are stumbled onto this video because you need a name for your baby, please take some of these. I think they're so cool. Your kid will be unique, and that is an awesome thing. So if you enjoy this kind of content, if you enjoy my channel, if you enjoy me, go ahead and give this video a like and subscribe to my channel for more content, and check back next week for more fun pregnancy lifestyle content, and I will see you then. Bye guys.